notified that we're having an issue streaming live, and it has just now started streaming live. So I think it'd be appropriate, Ms. Statnak, if you updated the public that are able to access what has occurred to this point.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So what we've gone through so far, like I said, explained earlier, this is our 16th meeting, virtual meeting via Zoom. The public can access our meetings through AugustaRichmondTaxAssessors.com for the previous meetings. Also, we have also gone through the voting for vice chair, which Ms. Juanita Burney has been selected as the vice chair of the Tax Assessors Board. We're just going through the Specialized Assessments Obsolescence Committee meeting reports, and that information will be provided throughout the staff recommendations. And there is nothing to report from the Personnel Review Committee. So according to speed now, we're actually moving forward with the staff recommendations for personnel property. Would be presented by Ms. Terry.
Thank you. Good afternoon. We're going to start off. I'm not sure who's running the computer for our board meeting, but if we could turn to page 4 and display that agenda. We're just waiting for that to be displayed. It looks like we're having some technical difficulty.
Well, and we do apologize. We have some substitutes working this today, so please bear with us as we are without Keldrick today.
And that would start with the homestead _ ownership. Thank you so much. We have a couple of reinstatements of homestead exemption. Both of these owners have stated that they've lived at the property. We had return mail. We were unable to get a hold of one of the owners, but they have both stated that they've lived there. So we are asking for reinstatement of homestead exemption. All right, and if you could go to the next page, business returns. This is just part of our normal work. We have some accounts where they did not file for 2020. And we have some valuation adjustments. And if you'll go, page 6 is also some adjustments. Business deleted, if you'll, yeah. So the page numbers are off just a little bit from what you see from your actual packet because we have other documents inserted. So on your packet, we're actually on page 4 of 6, but for the person that's running the computer, we're on page 7. Business deleted, these are businesses that are no longer active businesses. You'll see there was prior years for the Aiken Augusta shredding. And then Charming Charlie's is at the mall. They actually closed their store, which is the reason that they're both on the business deleted. If you'll go to the next page. This one was in the name of Estroff Howard. This boat is actually owned by Fort Gordon under a division name of DMFRWR, which is Decorated of Family, Morale, Welfare, and Reception. This is just a boat that's located out at the fort. It was incorrectly registered by Mr. Estroff, and so we are canceling that boat for 2020. Motor vehicle appeals. Brian, do you have anything on the motor vehicle appeals?
I don't have much to add to them except that, you know, they came in with a varying degree of condition issues or mileage, et cetera. So we made the appropriate adjustments based on Kelly Blue Book and observed condition of the vehicles.
Thank you. If you'll go to the GAAO Personal Property Committee findings on grouping cellular equipment. We discussed the cellular equipment groupings with the Specialized Assessment and Obsolescence Committee. We are requesting approval for adjusting several items on the equipment groupings based on asset lives that we are seeing on our returns. And we are also working with Cell Tower Solutions. This is the company is conducting our cell tower reviews for 2021. On these next few pages, if you see group 3 highlighted, it was previously a group 2. And if you see group 2 highlighted, these were previously listed as group 3. And if you'll go to scroll down, and then one more page after that. Thank you. So on this page, we are asking the board to adjust 3G equipment. That 3G is phasing out. We have 4G and 5G now. So we've implemented 3 columns for 2021, 25% obsolescence. For 2022, that equipment should be idle. So we're asking for the idle adjustment of 50%. And then by 2023, that will be phased out. And there are 2 line items, the 3G radio equipment and UMTS 3G core. Those same obsolescence and reductions would apply. The last 2 pages are just some more group live adjustments. They both show, well, actually there's 3 pages. 2 pages. Group 2 and group 2. So they were previously group 3. I did want to mention that a company's assets can be grouped in 4 life groups. Since majority of these changes are group 2 and group 3, a life expectancy of an asset in group 2 would last 8 to 12 years. And in group 3, 13 years or more. So the longer the asset lasts, the less depreciation or factor that they have. The shorter the asset's life, the more depreciation will be applied each year. And the majority of our changes are going from group 3 down to group 2. And so if anybody has any questions about this cellular equipment adjustments or anything on the board work, please let me know.
No questions.
I guess I've got one question, just one.
Okay.
This list of equipment, is it from all of the providers? Is this the sum of all of the cell providers?
This would be any company that has cellular equipment. We would be adjusting the life groups based on what we're asking the board to approve today.
Is
Thank
this,
you.
is this also the equipment that is located out at the cell tower areas?
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
thank
it
you.
is.
Are there any further questions? If there are none, may I have a motion to accept the GAA Personnel Property Committee Cellular Equipment List?
So move.
Any seconds?
Second.
Okay, with the motion and the second, any discussion? If no discussion, we all signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Okay, the ayes have it. May we move on to the commercial property, Mr. Funk?
Yes, ma'am, and board. Not a whole lot to update you on commercial property this go round. We do have just a couple of addendum items to the assessment change list. I believe Sean's the one working this. Sean, if you'll bring the list up and go to the commercial section. Should be one of the first pages under real estate in that list. Okay, so up just a little bit, I believe. Right there. So we have these 5 properties that had all of them are the same situation. They had a 299C, which was applied through an appeal process, but under the current valuation process, we reviewed all of these properties, and the value based on the income of the new groupings is less than what that 299C value was. So therefore, we have sent these as addendums to the assessment change list and are asking that we remove that 299C and reduce the value to the appropriate income value based on current year methodology. I will say that you see 2 secure care locations, which are self-storage. The other 3 are all hotel motel. I think I think the impact on hotel motel has been known from the COVID impact. So that is why we're asking for these addendums and adjustments in the commercial section.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Question.
Yes, sir.
You said that is due to the losses from COVID. Loss of income. Would that be loss of income from COVID?
Yes, that would be a reduced income valuation based on, what we looked at with hotel motel was like a 3-year trend. And obviously 2020 is well off from prior years. So yes, that is due to loss of income, occupancy, etc.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Are there any more questions? If there are none, we're moving on to the specialized assessments. Mr. Roundtree.
Thank you very much. And back to the board work. Sean, if you could go to the specialized assessment. There we go. Go to the next page. So the first thing we would like to present today is the full exempt property digest. The entire exempt property digest is actually on the boardroom table if anyone would like to review it in person, or we can email it to you at your request. Here is a summary of that exempt digest that shows the change in counts from the prior year. We have increased only 35 parcels from 2020 to this year. and a total valuation change of 47 million. We were discussing in the specialized meeting earlier today that the majority of that value is either new construction or correction of information on educational properties, specifically Board of Education property. And so here's the summary of that digest. And if you go to the next page, please. And here we start the individual items for approval. Page 1 here is historic rehabilitation property. The first two are Part A approvals that were approved by the Historic Preservation Division. The next 3 items were all certified as completed and qualified historic by the Historic Preservation Division, meeting all the requirements of the rehab. And lastly, a dual submission of both the Part A and Part B that the project qualified and was completed. And we're asking for approval on all of these historic exemptions. All right, the next page, please. This item is a brownfield property preferential assessment application. It's actually the second ever that we've had and the second for this digest. This property is the Beacon Station apartment complex on Wrightsboro Road, which is duly owned by a private developer, CV Foundry, and a government entity, the Urban Redevelopment Agency of Augusta. This property met all Georgia EPD requirements for brownfield property preferential assessment with an eligible expense amount of $195,000. And this exemption will stay on the property until the property owners have saved that amount of money, which we anticipate will be just 1 year. And we are recommending approval of this preferential assessment. All right, next page, please. And here we begin our conservation use applications. We've got about 20 properties that are a mixture of renewals, new applications, and continuations that we are recommending approval for. There's page 1 here, and I'll note at the bottom, there is a lot of smaller properties that are all contiguous. The property owner, for planning reasons and personal reasons, determined they wanted to keep them all separate, but they are qualified based on the use that we observed for raising of livestock, specifically cattle. If you go to the next page, please. Here you'll see the rest of the approvals we've recommended, either new continuations. And then I'll specifically speak to the last item that we're recommending denial. Property 2554 Madrid Drive, which is adjacent to Fort Gordon. And the applicant indicated that the property was used primarily as a green space buffer for Fort Gordon. And in this type of application, we do need to see that there's some type of specific agreement or covenant in place on the property that makes sure that it's actually restricted for use as a green space. And that information was not provided by the property owner, nor did we find any recorded documents that indicated that it was actually dedicated green space. So we're recommending denial of this property since we did not see the declared use in place, nor any other type of use that would potentially qualify for conservation. Let's see. I guess I've kind of flown through a lot of these. We still have some more exemptions to discuss, but are there any questions to this point? Okay, hearing none, I'll move on to the next page. This begins our applications for exemption, full exemption. The first two on your list are from Trinity Baptist Church of Augusta. They purchased, or excuse me, of Columbia County. They purchased property on Peach Orchard Road, an existing church, and have opened a satellite campus there. And we are recommending approval of that religious exemption. The next three items are Walton Options for Independent Living on Walton Way. It's a ongoing operation that has their corporate office, or excuse me, their local office and facilities for the local disabled population. They're actually currently undergoing a new construction project, but still remain operating at the property. And we recommend approval of a purely public charity exemption. Last on this list, Journey Community Church on Old Louisville Road is a new owner of an existing church, and we recommend approval of that exemption. All right, next page, please. I'm going to pull up the record for this one because I believe the entire ownership name got cut off for the first two items. Okay, so this is a new owner of property that was previously exempted as charitable. The new owner is the Georgia Mental Health Consumer Network, which is a 501c3, and they acquired the property in middle of December last year. They did file for an exemption, and upon review, staff discovered that the property is not in use. The new owner has not occupied the building, and they did speak with the property owner, who indicated they have plans to occupy, but have not yet. And they recommend denial of that application. And then last on the list is an existing exemption. We're recommending removal. This was a property owned by Congregation Church of God, Christ Jesus on MLK Jr. Boulevard that was originally exempted as a parsonage. Upon field review this year, due to a fire, we discovered that it had been in use as a rental property, and it verified that it is no longer used as a parsonage, and we've recommended removal of that exemption. And that looks like the end of my list. So if there are any questions, I'm happy to respond.
Are there any
All right.
questions for Mr. Roundtree? If there are none, we're going to move on to residential property. Ms. Greer.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. As you know, y'all were mailed out the assessment change list, new and increase, decrease. There's a copy in the boardroom of increase, decrease, new, and no change. But I'm just open for questions on anything that you've reviewed at this point. But we have a total of 77,828 notices to be mailed out. And those are our changes. About 20,000 of them are increase, 5,000 plus are decrease, and 54,000 are no change.
Okay. So with that, since anybody have any questions for Ms. Greer? If not, with that, we will start with questions on the increase and decrease list, the new parcels list, and order of assignment. When called, will each board member will ask his or her questions or reply no questions? Any questions on the increase and decrease list, starting with Mr. Simpkins? Mr. Simpkins, did you have any questions pertaining to your increase?
Oh, I'm sorry. I had you on mute. No question, ma'am.
Thank you. Moving on to Mr. Middleton. Mr. Middleton, did you have any questions?
Yeah, I needed to unmute as well. Sorry about that. Yes, I had about 30 questions on about 30 properties, but I'm going to ask only of a couple. On page 203 of 1516, I had a property that increased, the value increased 3,192.8%.
Uh-huh.
And I was just wondering how it went from the 6,000 to 191,000.
Okay, if you could give me that map and parcel again, I'll look it up for you.
The map is 027-3
Hmm,
066
uh-huh.
00-0.
Okay, let's see. What's going on? Okay.
Do I need to repeat that number?
No, sir. It looks like the house became 100, it was a new construction. And it's 100% complete. Prior to that, it was a vacant lot of $6,000 on the lot. So
Okay,
it's a new house.
okay, thank you. I think I had several of them.
Okay.
I'll do one more. You ready for the number?
Yes, sir.
027
Uh-huh.
3 180 00-0. That one increased 11,000%.
Okay, let's check that out. It's again, another new house.
Okay. All right.
100%
Thank you
complete.
very much.
You're very welcome, sir.
And this will be, I think this is the last one. I tell you what, that's okay. Go ahead.
Are you sure?
I had another one that I wanted to find out if they were. Let me see if I can find it right quick.
Okay.
Okay, there's a block of houses, but I'm going to give you one of the numbers, and they all ranged in the 60 to 69% range. And I'm
Yes,
wondering if they were townhouses. The first number is 032
Uh-huh.
4
Uh-huh.
097 01-0.
Let's see. Okay. Lake Forest Court. They are townhomes, sir.
Okay, so it looked like they all were either renovated, upgraded, or whatever.
Yes, sir. And it might have been an adjustment on the neighborhood as well, based on sales.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all I have.
Okay, moving on to Mr. Scott. Thank you, Mr. Middleton.
No question.
No questions. Ms. Burney?
Yes, I have a few, thank you. The first parcel number is 046-2
046.
046
Yes, ma'am.
-2 -112 -01-0.
Okay.
This is a Walton Rehab Hospital.
Yeah. I'm going to let Brian speak to that.
Yes, ma'am.
It's a
Miss
commercial
Bernie.
piece of property.
So that was the old office building that was out in front of the piece of property right there on 13th Street. And that got demoed. So it went to a land and accessory value only, and that improvement was demolished and removed.
Okay, so they got rid of it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. The next one is 046-3 -179 -00-0. and it's Laney Walker Development Corporation.
Okay, let's see.
It came off a significant amount in value, so I'm wondering, was all of that land, or did a house come off and that's just land left?
Yes, that is just land left, and
I think that's one that I messed with, Nancy. I'll
Oh, is
address
that
that.
one?
So this particular neighborhood, or all of the Laney Walker neighborhoods, were reviewed for revaluation this year. And this is one that we found that was priced as a commercial piece of property, but is actually zoned residential. So we adjusted it based on the new residential land values for that area, and put an appropriate value on there that's uniform with similar size lots in the area.
Okay, thank you. Now, my next one, we don't have to look it up by parcel. I just want to say the entire page is listed as Bishop S.C. Madison, which I know is House of Prayer.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm pretty certain is House of Prayer.
Yes.
And there's a long, just about every property on there is in the value range of 35,000. Is that housing complex that's right there with the church?
No, ma'am. This is the University Square, or the McCullough Townhomes that are on Laney Walker at 13th, kind of across from the
okay.
Cancer Center. And these were, looks like they were revalued as part of the commercial team's income adjustments for the year.
Okay. Thank you. That clears that up for me, because that makes more sense to me, because I'm like, I thought those houses right next to the church would have appraised for more. So that's different property. Thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am.
And then next is, I'm almost through. Let's see, I'm gonna skip that one. This one we don't have to look up, but I'm not familiar. Can either one of you tell me what Don't Panic LLC is? They have several entries in my review.
So I know that to be an owner of property that's primarily downtown and in Old Town. I think they own a variety of stuff around the county, though, that's mostly rentals. I think they got a mixture of both residential and commercial rentals.
But it's not a nonprofit.
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay. All right. 047-3-229-00-0. There are a couple of entries right there. It's Miracle Making Ministries.
Yes, ma'am.
I thought they were primarily just healthcare based, but are these lots that they have?
Yes, ma'am. Vacant lots.
But they're not exempt for tax then?
No, ma'am.
Not if they're on this list. So anything on the increase decrease list that you received would be a taxable property. My recollection is that a lot of these were applied for exemption maybe 7 years ago, and were denied. Anything that was not in use by the entity for their mission was denied exemption.
Okay, I'm on my last one. My last one is 052-0127-00-0. This is a property in Bel Air Estates.
Yes, ma'am.
And it is coming in at, although I know they had some upper properties in there, this one is coming in at almost $1 million. And it was raised in value $125,000, almost $126,000.
Yes, ma'am, the land was reworked in that neighborhood. And also all the houses, the neighborhood was ridden. Oh, thank you, Brian. Yeah, it's got 5,401 square feet. And the neighborhood has a 15% modifier on it based on sales.
Okay. So it wasn't an add-on or anything. It truly is just based on the current structure.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's it for me.
Thank you, Ms. Barney. I was here a little earlier today, so I did ask my questions of Ms. Greer and Ms. Bugis, but mine was pertaining to what was the determining factor of the percentage increase or decrease on the neighborhood rebounds, which was explained to me earlier. So at this time, I don't have any further questions. So I'm gonna move that on, and I'm gonna move on to Mr. O'Neill.
Okay, I have about three. One is a commercial account. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, 086106302. That was an increase on that property over $1 million. I'm trying to get some understanding of that.
Give me just a moment, Mr. O'Neill. I'm looking at it right now. Okay. Okay, so this is the U-Haul that's now in the old Kmart on Gordon Highway. That entire facility was renovated with indoor climate-controlled storage units. So it is a partial completion of construction for this year.
Okay. The next one.
Let me correct that. I apologize. It is 100% complete, but it's not stabilized. Their occupancy they hadn't been open long enough since it was completed to reach full occupancy of market. So that is not quite on an income valuation yet. It's just cost for the completion of the renovation.
Okay, I have a block of parcels that I'm gonna give you a number on one of them. You can kind of see what I'm talking about. This is on 072.
I'm sorry, can you say that again? I apologize.
Okay, 072249100.
Okay, this is some vacant land. Did it go from 2,500 down to 2,200?
Okay, yeah. Now I noticed on this whole track of parcels, there was a $1,000 increase, then it's a $300 decrease. What could you tell me about that?
Okay, well, the land was reworked for this area, and most of it's on lot. You'd have to give me an example of one that's.
Nancy, I can jump in on this. This is
Is that where you reworked that?
Yeah, so this there's a large area throughout South Augusta, including Laney Walker, Turpin Hill, and adjoining neighborhoods, where the appraisal staff reviewed both improved sales and vacant land sales, and determined that there was a need to adjust the overall values based on the size. So the smaller lots were reduced a good bit, moderately to typical size lots, which is what this would be considered, was reduced slightly, and then larger lots were given a somewhat higher value than those around them. So there's, I guess, three breakpoints for the lots in the area. You've got small, typical, and larger than average. And so that's where the adjustments were based on, those sales that were in the market and the breakpoints that were determined by the residential staff.
Okay, so previously, all the lots, biggest lots were 2,500 regardless of their
There
size.
were there were a handful that were, triple and quadruple the size of the lots around them, and they had an equal value. There was just one lot value across the board. And that's one thing they noted, that they were, equally priced, but not quite uniform in their value, because they were, much larger, and they had sales to support an increased value. I think the next break point up is about $3,500 that you'll see on parcels that are around 3 to 4/10 of an acre and larger.
Mhm. Okay, the next one is on this number, 082042000.
Okay.
Okay, now I noticed also that in this particular subdivision, probably 85% of them, the value of those properties went up. Were they suppressed before as to why all of them would sort of fall on an upward trend?
And that was one of the properties that was reviewed as part of the neighborhood revaluation for the year. And I'm looking at the information provided from the appraisals that were done in here, and it does appear that there was a value on most of the properties that was below market. And it seems like, let me see here, that's the preliminary study. Let me pull the final information up. And is this, what's the name of this neighborhood, Nancy? Gordon Woods.
Gordon Woods, yes, sir.
So this neighborhood is kind of a newer section, relatively, of the Barton Village area. And I think a lot of these sales were either rehabilitated or new construction that was going on in that area. And so the review indicated there was a low value relative to the market, and there was a overall adjustment upward for any parcel in the neighborhood.
I see Senate Bill 346 had something to do with a lot of it too.
And that is an impact on especially the inflationary. So, that shows up anytime a sale occurs the prior year, that the value will be set at the sales price if it's below our fair market value. And then it will roll off the following year and go back to the neighborhood's adjusted value based on the market in the area.
Okay, that's it for me.
My apologies. Mr. Mills?
Okay, I have one question. What is the determining factor when you use the native value table update?
Oh, NADA is a market guide for the value of mobile homes. And that's the guide that we use to set the valuations of the pre-built mobile homes. And Terry, you can speak more to that, but that's basically it. We purchased this guide that is published by experts on the values of mobile homes, and we utilize those values for our tax digest.
Okay, and we only use it for mobile homes, and that's it.
For mobile homes, both permanently located and pre-built mobile homes.
Okay,
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you. Mrs. Dow?
Hi, I had a question about just one specific property. I think I was able to answer the questions I had just by looking up the prior tax records. But the parcel number is 008307900.
All righty.
And it's not so much a question about the valuation as just trying to understand it. It looks like it's a parcel across the street from the main gray media building.
That's right.
Yes.
This is there's a 2.5 acre piece of property between Cabela Drive and the new Gray Media building. The parcel is part of an RCDA arrangement, wherein the taxation of both this parcel and the adjacent office building are allocated based on an agreement with the Richmond County Development Authority and the Board of Assessors. And I believe this year is Brian, is this the first year of record for this account, I believe?
It would be.
And so this current year, whatever the full fair market value of the property is only taxed at 15%.
Okay.
And they did actually request to consolidate this property with their office building. But unfortunately, they're in different tax districts, so we couldn't do that. So this is just kind of a piece of slope buffering them between the road and their building.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. So we're moving on to the new parcels and no change list. Any questions, Mr. Simpkins? Mr. Simpkins?
I'm sorry, I was on mute. No, ma'am, I haven't.
No questions. Okay, Mr. Middleton?
No questions.
Mr. Scott?
No question.
Ms. Burney?
No questions.
I have no questions. Mr. O'Neill?
No question.
Mr. Mills? Mr. Mills?
Yes.
Do you have any questions pertaining to the new parcels list?
No, I don't. I'm good.
Okay, Ms. Dow?
I had no questions, thank you.
No questions. Okay, thank you so much. As stated, the no change list is available and no changes were made on those property values from the prior year. Are there any other questions or comments regarding to the 2021 Real Estate Digest? Anyone? If we don't have any questions, I need a motion to approve the 2021 Real Estate Digest.
Motion to approve the 2021 digest.
A motion. Thank you. Are there any discussion? If all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any noes? The ayes have it. I need a motion to approve the remaining staff recommendations, the commercial property and specialized assessment.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any noes? The ayes have it. Moving on to the chief appraiser report, Mr. Roundtree.
All right, so the heavy lifting's out of the way. We've got the digest approved and ready for mailing, and I'll let you know that the mailing date is set for this coming Wednesday, which will start our appeal period. We'll get more into that shortly. I guess to Mr. Middleton's request for other matters, and certainly y'all should discuss this, but we will continue to stay in conference and communication with the administrator's office to determine if there are any guidance or criteria for how and when that should occur. So we will stay in touch with everyone who's in charge of letting people into this building to make sure that we do what's best. But it was good to see that the commission, at least on a trial basis, has started back with in-person meetings last Tuesday. Well, I got something in the mail today that reminded me to say congratulations again to Mr. Frank Middleton and Mrs. Mara Dial for your appointments to the board and your 4-year terms. And if you wanted to see them, because you haven't yet, Mr. Middleton, here is your certificate of appointment. And Mara Dial, here is your certificate of appointment. And these will be posted in the lobby as required by Georgia Department of Revenue regulation, and we could certainly email you a copy of one if you would like it.
Sure,
All
thank you so much.
All right. Jump into ongoing projects. I'll keep saying it until we're out of the woods on this, but the Tyler Technologies IAS World conversion of our database is consuming a lot of our time, and we're doing, I think, an excellent job of working throughout this process in addition to getting our actual work done. You can see the, I'm sorry, I didn't pull up my shared screen, did I? So y'all got to tell me when I forget to pull this up. Here we go. All right, there you can see it. I'll jump back. Mr. Middleton, there's your certificate. And there's Mrs. Dials. All right. And the CAMA conversion, we are kind of towards the end, but not done yet with the conversion of all of our WinGap data to the IAS World system. And this is a complicated and very detailed process. And I want to commend all the staff members that have been involved with this in presenting questions to the Tyler team and identifying potential issues and pitfalls that they've seen as they've gone through the software. And Tyler also mentions frequently that they are impressed with our engagement and our knowledge of both our existing system and the appraisal process in general. So thank you everyone out there for helping us out in this difficult project. The Eagle View pictometry flight is done, 100% complete, and our next steps for the pictometry flight are to deliver all imagery to the online access. And you can see here a couple pictures of recent imagery from the beginning of the year. We just approved a brownfield preferential assessment on the property to the right. That's Beacon Station, and of course our building to the lower left. But this imagery is, as we speak, getting cleaned up and stitched together in a way that is going to be very beneficial for staff as they're reviewing properties on a day-to-day basis, but also for an upcoming change finder project, which we hope will be delivered towards the end of the summer, allowing us to compare our 2018 flight to this current flight to determine if any changes have occurred in that time frame. And Terry mentioned cell tower solutions earlier. This review is ongoing. I believe they've been delivered the 2021 returns for the cell companies that have equipment in Richmond County. And we have already begun implementing some recommendations and suggestions from them as far as group life groupings and depreciation on various items. All right, we just wrapped up the beginning point of our Department of Audits and Accounts annual sales review. They submitted over 1,100 sales to us for review, and we poured through those, and we're recommending that the Department of Audits remove 17 sales from that study. Leanne worked hard on that, and we submitted that to them middle of last week. The next step for Department Audits is to submit their appraisals to us that we can review. In addition to our sales and values, they do their own appraisals and compare it to our values. And the final result of that sales review impacts the educational funding statewide, and also sets the assessment ratio that is utilized for the utility valuations in Richmond County and all Georgia counties. And if you knew what that was, you probably learned it in training with the Department of Revenue. And we are continuing to be grateful for the additional classes that they've provided and that our staff are attending. Jekyll is coming up quickly in July, and registration is closed. And I believe we're sending about 8 staff members and 2 board members to that conference. So it'll be good to re-engage with our colleagues statewide and see what is going on across the state. Next week is Caveat, And I think everyone that labored through the prior caveat session will be happy to know that it is a different format this year, but we are still waiting for additional information on how that will be organized. They did indicate in their last email that we should get something from them this week about scheduling and how it's going to be set up. So at this point, all I know is that it's virtual and that it's from 9 to 12, Monday through Friday. So we will get that information out to you as soon as we receive it. Keep your eyes on your email. All right, as we start our 2021 digest, we are thankfully wrapping up our 2020 appeals. The last 4 Board of Equalization appeals are on May 25th. I believe we have 3 for commercial and 1 for personal property. And then a handful of settlement conferences with one specific tax representative on June 2nd. So we're almost out of the woods on appeals, and that'll allow especially the commercial team to put their efforts into the 2021 appeal season. All right, so let's move on to the 21 digest, which we just approved. And I want to make sure everyone sees this page. We are online for appeals. We started this 2 years ago. If you are going to the BOA's website, AugustaRichmondTaxAssessor.com, you'll see quick links to the left. The one that says property search will take you to a screen that allows you or anybody you know to search for their property on our site. And when they go to that link, they will see a little verbiage at the top. I believe it says click here to file an appeal, and they can start the appeal process right there on QPublic / the Augusta Richmond Tax Assessor website, which is very helpful for us to manage and communicate with the property owner. And property owners can also come in person or mail in or email their appeals, but we're hoping that every year that this online appeals process will become more utilized. And again, those are going out on Wednesday. This will be available on Thursday through the deadline for filing appeals of June 28th. All right. Right here, we've got a quick overall summary of the changes that we saw on the overall digest. Roughly 80 million, 79 million of new property, an increase on existing properties of 3.7 billion, a decrease of nearly 900 million, and the majority of the digest there in yellow was not changed. And these values are a reflection of what was mailed out on the assessment notice. And so as appeals occur and errors of fact come to light, this will certainly change. But this is our starting point, benchmark that we will measure how the year is going. A lot of work went into these values that you see. We reviewed adjusted 160 residential neighborhoods. Commercial made an income value-based adjustments on self-storage, hotel, motel, multifamily, and then added a new income model to their workload for mobile home parks. The overall increase over our active values from 2020 was almost 5%. Compared to the 2020 digest that we submitted, we saw nearly a 4% increase in our overall values. And the bulk of that was in inflationary market-based adjustments. We went to over 6,300 properties just based on permits. And so there was a lot of real growth, certainly in Richmond County this year. Nearly $75 million worth of residential real physical growth and nearly 180 million in commercial. The quick review I took of the highest growth areas, it really wasn't any surprise that the highest growth areas in the county, especially for residential, were the Jimmy Dias Gordon Highway corridors around Fort Gordon and the South Central Richmond County area around Diamond Lakes, kind of in all directions. We're continuing to see more interest from developers and home builders in that Diamond Lakes area. And then commercial kind of, pigtailing on the residential growth, a lot of commercial growth in the Jimmy Dias Gordon Highway area. And then as usual, the Washington Road Riverwatch Parkway area, which is always changing and evolving. The residential neighborhood reviews this year, again, finalized 166 neighborhood revaluations. We started off reviewing 334, and of course, the constraints of I guess staff and time meant that we couldn't get all 334 done. It was an ambitious goal, and I think we're very satisfied with what we did complete. And you will see there at the bottom that the inflationary growth that was applied to those reviews was over 230 million. And those neighborhoods also had about $28 million of real physical growth. All right. So we're not always going up on property like some may believe. Our commercial team took a hard look at what was going on in the commercial market, especially on the properties that they value based on income. And based on their review, they saw continued interest in a robust market in the apartment area, and in fact have an increase of value on the apartment income valuations that they did this year. Conversely, hotel motel, which was heavily impacted by the COVID pandemic, indicated that a need for a decrease was absolutely required. And so overall, all models of hotel and motel valuation, there was an overall $69 million, more or less, decrease. Self-storage was also reviewed with a slight increase. And then the new income model that was added to the mix this year for mobile homes and RV parks. So these are specific parks that are generating revenue, and the valuation was based on that actual and ongoing use, the income going to the parks. And that added about $28 million based on that review. And a quick look here at the overall inflationary and real growth, and highlights in green showing the biggest impacts. To the left is by digest class, our growth, as it will always be, or negative growth, was primarily driven by commercial and residential property. And the tax districts that saw the highest levels of growth were Tax District 1, the old city limits, and then the surrounding county districts and Tax District 2. So that's the start of our digest. Next steps will be our personal property, and I have nothing to report on values yet. It's too soon to start presenting that, as the returns are still being reviewed and completed by staff who are humming along really well. And hopefully we'll have those finalized in the next couple of weeks. And we will be bringing that information to the board at the next board meeting in June. And that will be the personal property digest approval at that point. And that's the end of my show for the day. If anybody's got any questions at all, I'd be happy to answer. All right, well, thank you so much for your hard work in reviewing all the assessment changes, and we look forward to reporting what's going on in the office based on the appeal process within the next month. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Roundtree. We're moving on to other matters. No, Mr. Middleton had wanted to bring up the discussion pertaining to the in-person meetings. Mr. Middleton, I'm going to leave it to you.
I think Mr. Roundtree said that we had to wait on HR. Was that my understanding?
So in my response, I didn't get that answer, yes or no. So I asked for any protocol or guidance or directives from the administrator's office as it relates to in-person meetings. And so my question to them will still be that even if they don't have guidance, can we meet in person based on our own decision? And so I will follow up with them to determine that. But his response kind of led me to believe that we should hold until they submit something to the individual departments on how they should conduct themselves. Because in the end, we are meeting in their building, and we want to make sure we're following whatever protocol is in place.
Okay, thank you for that.
Okay.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. Middleton.
No, I was just saying, thank you for the info.
Well, I was just gonna say that in as much as the conference room is set up with the protective shields, I may be making a bad assumption, but have most all of us had our vaccines?
I've had mine.
Yes.
I
Yes.
have. Is there any member that has not been vaccinated? So given that those two scenarios are in place, I would like to make a recommendation that we make a request to Human Resources that we be allowed to resume in-person meeting. Following
Second.
CDC guidelines, of course, we would still wear our masks. We would keep our social distance as it's set up on the table in the conference room. So the request would be to resume meeting in compliance with CDC recommendations.
I concur.
Yeah.
Any further statements pertaining to that? Anyone? Okay. If there are no more further questions pertaining to that, I guess we move on to our next item on the agenda. And with Ms. Dow being the newest on the board, we'll leave it to you.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I said, with you being the newest member on the board, normally the newest member adjourn the meeting.
Oh, I'm leaving everybody hanging there.
You get the back cleanup here.
I would like to move to adjourn the meeting.
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
one comment before we dismiss. I would just like to thank Mr. Roundtree and his staff. I guarantee you, no member of the board understands just how hard and dedicated he and his staff work to get this digest done. I had my eyes open, some going through the specialized assessment meeting, but everybody owes that Mr. Roundtree and his staff the highest of compliments and thank yous available.
I agree, Mr. Thank you for all your hard work, Mr. Roundtree, and to the tax assessors employees.
Oh, thank you. Y'all have a wonderful staff here that does a great deal of work, and we appreciate it.
Are there any further comments, questions? Here are none. The meeting, all in favor by signify by saying aye for adjournment.
Aye.
Any nays? Anybody want to stay? The ayes have it. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.
Not everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.